alien princess fears marrying the merciless human until she finally meets him. Beyond her, the twin sons of Thalrin cast golden streaks across the shimmering city below. Towers of crystal and steel reflected the light, making the entire capital look like a city made of fire and glass. Ships flew through the sky in smooth arcs, leaving sparkling trails in their wake. It was beautiful, but Liara felt a knot tighten in her chest. She had always loved the view from this balcony, loved the feeling that her world was wide and full of possibilities. But today, the beauty could not chase away the fear. Today, she was to receive the official message that would decide her future. And that message carried a name that made her heart pound with dread: Captain Elias Kane. Her mother, Queen Arithia, approached silently, her presence calm and commanding. She placed a hand on Liara's shoulder. "Are you ready, Liara?" she asked, her voice soft yet steady. Liara turned to face her, trying to meet her mother's calm gaze. "Ready." "I don't know if anyone can be ready for a marriage with a human," she admitted. "They say he is merciless. He has fought in more battles than anyone in living memory. I don't know what to expect." The queen sighed, a mixture of understanding and gentle authority in her expression. "Stories and rumors are dangerous things, child. They grow larger than reality because they are whispered without truth. You will meet him, and only then will you know the man he truly is. Remember, this marriage is not just about you or him. It is about our people, our future, and the alliance that can protect both our worlds." Liara nodded, though the knot in her chest did not loosen. She had grown up hearing tales of humans, their fierce courage, their cold precision in battle, their ability to survive in the harshest conditions. And Captain Kane, in particular, had become almost a legend. But legends often frightened those who had yet to meet the person behind them. She stepped back from the railing and walked to her chamber, her robes brushing against the polished floor. The walls of the room were lined with tapestries depicting the history of Thalrin, great victories, wise rulers, and countless tales of courage. And yet, despite being surrounded by heroes, Liara felt small. How could she stand beside a man whose reputation alone seemed enough to silence armies? Her attendants were already waiting, their expressions carefully neutral. Liara paused, smoothing her hair and adjusting the golden diadem on her head. The small crown was light, yet it carried the weight of generations. She wondered if Elias would even notice it, or if he would only see the princess he was commanded to marry. "Your Highness," one of the attendants said softly, "the shuttle is ready." The human captain waits on the docking platform. All arrangements have been made for a safe and formal introduction. Liara took a deep breath and nodded. "Thank you, lead the way." As they moved through the palace corridors, Liara's mind swirled with questions. What kind of man would he be? Could someone so skilled in war truly be kind? Could he understand a world as different from his as Thalrin? She tried to imagine meeting him, yet every vision ended with his stern eyes and the rumors of merciless efficiency. The shuttle was waiting at the docking platform, sleek and silver, hovering silently above the ground. Pilots and guards moved around it with practiced efficiency. Liara stepped aboard, her heart racing. She had traveled in shuttles before, but this journey felt heavier, filled with the weight of destiny. Inside, the shuttle hummed quietly, its engines glowing softly. She found a seat and fastened herself in, glancing out the window as the city receded below. The streets, the towers, the rivers of light, it all seemed smaller now, like a memory slipping away. The stars ahead looked cold and endless, stretching between worlds that were so unfamiliar to her. Minutes passed in silence, each one stretching longer than the last. Finally, the shuttle slowed as it approached the massive human ship, the Dauntless. Unlike Thalrin's elegant and delicate architecture, the human ship was practical, strong, and imposing. Metal and technology gleamed under the docking lights. It did not feel like a home, but a fortress. Liara swallowed. This was where the man she had heard of all her life waited, Captain Elias Kane, merciless, fearless, unstoppable. The shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss. Liara stepped out carefully, her robe brushing the floor. Guards lined the docking bay, their expressions serious. And then, finally, she saw him. Elias Kane stood tall, his posture rigid but not unkind. His uniform was neat, decorated with insignias that told of battles won and missions completed. His hair was short, practical, and his eyes, Liara's breath caught. They were intense, focused, but not cruel. There was a sharpness there, yes, but also a quiet awareness. He studied her as carefully as she studied him, as if measuring her presence and intentions. "Princess Liara," he said, his voice calm, steady, carrying no threat, no arrogance. "I am Captain Elias Kane. Welcome aboard the Dauntless." Liara's mouth went dry. His reputation had suggested a man unapproachable, cold, merciless. But this was different. He was not smiling, but he was not hostile. He spoke clearly with respect, without the exaggerated severity she had imagined. "I thank you, Captain," she managed, curtsying slightly, unsure if she was meant to bow or just nod. Elias nodded once, acknowledging her gesture. "Shall we proceed to the meeting room? There is much to discuss before your arrival at Earth." As they walked through the corridors of the ship, Liara could not help but observe everything. The crew moved efficiently, yet they laughed quietly among themselves. They respected Elias, yes, but there was warmth in the air. Here, strength did not mean fear, discipline did not mean cruelty. They arrived at a large room, circular and bright, with views of stars stretching infinitely beyond the glass walls. The room smelled faintly of ozone and metal, a reminder that this was a human ship, not a palace. Elias gestured to a seat. "Please sit. I want this meeting to be comfortable. We can speak freely before protocols begin." Liara hesitated, then sat, her hands folded in her lap. She expected a lecture, a cold assessment, something that would remind her why humans were feared. But Elias simply sat across from her, hands resting on the table, eyes steady and watchful. "Princess," he began, "I know your people have heard stories about me, about humans. About war. I cannot stop the rumors, but I can tell you the truth. I fight because it is necessary. I lead because it is my duty. I am not cruel for the sake of cruelty. I protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is all." Liara blinked. The words were simple, but they carried weight. A merciless human, perhaps not. A human who understood responsibility, yes. And yet, could she trust that this man who wielded power in ways her people feared would ever care for someone like her? Elias seemed to sense her doubt. "I do not expect you to understand me immediately, and I do not expect you to like me right away, but I will give you honesty and respect, Princess. That is all I ask in return." Liara nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. Her heart was still heavy with worry, but a small seed of curiosity had been planted. Perhaps the man behind the stories was not as fearsome as everyone claimed. Perhaps there was more to him than the legend. The shuttle ride had been long, the walk across the docking bay tense. But now, sitting across from Elias Kane, she realized that fear alone could not define a person. Stories could exaggerate, legends could terrify, but only meeting someone face to face revealed the truth. As the stars outside the window stretched endlessly, Liara made a quiet promise to herself. She would observe, she would learn, and she would keep an open mind. Whatever lay ahead, she would not be ruled by fear. The journey had begun, and for the first time in days, Liara felt something new. An inkling of hope, a flicker of curiosity, and perhaps a sense that meeting Captain Kane might change not just her destiny, but the destiny of two worlds. Princess Liara walked through the corridors of the human ship Dauntless, her footsteps soft on the metallic floor. Every corner of the ship seemed alive with purpose. Crew members hurried past, their voices calm but alert, moving with precision that reminded her of a well-rehearsed dance. She had always admired efficiency, but there was something different about the human's movements, practical, sharp, yet not harsh. It was controlled energy, a sense that every action had meaning. Elias Kane led the way, his tall frame straight and composed. He didn't rush, but every step carried authority. Liara noticed the way the crew glanced at him as he passed, their expressions respectful but not afraid. That was unusual. On Thalrin, respect often came mixed with fear. Here, it seemed to come from trust. "I hope the trip was comfortable," Elias said without turning, his voice calm, almost soft. "Space travel can be unsettling for those not used to it." Liara swallowed and shook her head slightly. "It was different, but I have traveled in many vessels." "Your ship is very organized." He smiled faintly, the first real smile she had seen from him. It was small, almost reluctant, but there was warmth there. "We take care of our people. Organization is not just about efficiency, it is about safety. If my crew feels secure, the ship runs smoothly. I believe it is the same on your world." Liara tilted her head, surprised by the comparison. Most humans she had heard of were fierce, cold, unyielding. This man, though, was strong and focused, but he also seemed thoughtful, aware of others' needs. You think like a ruler," she said softly. "I think like a leader," he corrected gently. There is a difference. I do not rule them, I protect them, and I respect them. That is all leadership truly requires. Liara's curiosity grew. Perhaps the stories of mercilessness were exaggerated. Perhaps the human strength was not in cruelty, but in courage and responsibility. She wanted to test her theory, to understand this man beyond what others had whispered across galaxies. As they walked, the corridor opened into a larger room filled with holographic displays. Stars, planets, and moving lines of data floated in the air, spinning and shifting with each command. The technology fascinated Liara. On Thalran, they had beautiful crystal instruments, but the humans' devices were alive with motion, almost like they could think. "This is the command room," Elias said, motioning toward the central console. "Here, we manage navigation, communication, and monitoring. It is not ornate, but it functions well." Liara stepped closer, her eyes wide as she watched the holograms shift beneath her fingers. She reached out instinctively, and Elias moved slightly to guide her hand away from the controls, not in anger but in careful caution. "Do not be afraid to touch the displays," he said. "They respond to intention, but sudden movements can cause errors." She nodded, feeling a spark of excitement. "It is remarkable, like magic." He chuckled quietly, the sound low but genuine. "Science often seems like magic to those who do not understand it, but it is just observation and knowledge applied correctly." Liara smiled. She had always loved science and exploration, but humans had a different perspective, more practical and direct. Yet the result was similar, wonders created by curiosity and skill. Elias gestured toward a smaller viewing area, a balcony that extended slightly outside the main room. Stars stretched endlessly, glittering against the black of space. She could see distant planets and even small asteroids floating in silent orbit. "It is beautiful," she breathed. "So different from Thalran." He nodded, leaning on the railing beside her. "Beauty is everywhere. You only need to look closely. Out there in the stars, there is danger and wonder. Both exist together. Life in every form is the same." Liara's heart softened. He was not just a soldier or a commander. He observed, he thought, he respected. The rumors of mercilessness seemed far away now, replaced by something more complex, more human. For a moment they simply stood there, side by side, looking at the stars. Then, without warning, the ship shuddered. A low alarm echoed through the corridors, red lights flashing across the walls. Elias straightened instantly. "Status report," he commanded. His voice was steady, controlled, carrying no panic, only focus. A crew member hurried forward. "Captain Kane, we have detected an unidentified ship approaching. It is unarmed but moving fast, requesting identification." Elias' eyes narrowed, scanning the readouts. "Keep all communications open. Do not engage unless necessary. Princess Liara, please stay here." "You are safe inside the observation room." Liara shook her head. "I want to help. I can observe at least." He regarded her for a long moment, then slowly he nodded. "Observation is useful. You may stay, but follow instructions exactly. Safety comes first." As the crew worked with precision, Liara watched Elias move between consoles, issuing commands with quiet authority. Every word was measured, every action deliberate. The humans were calm, confident, and efficient, but most of all, they trusted him. And slowly, Liara realized that the stories she had heard of mercilessness, of fear, of cold cruelty were only part of the truth. Elias noticed her watching him. "Do not fear what you do not understand," he said quietly. "Stories can twist reality. Humans can be fierce, yes. But strength is not the same as cruelty." Liara nodded slowly, absorbing his words. "Then why do they say you are merciless?" she asked softly. He paused, considering. "Because people fear what they do not know. They see the results of actions, the victories and the losses, and they assume the worst. They do not see the care behind the choices. Leadership, survival, and protection can seem harsh to those who do not bear the responsibility." Liara studied him carefully. "And you, do you ever fear?" Elias looked at her, his eyes thoughtful. "Every day, but fear does not mean inaction. Courage does not mean absence of worry. It means moving forward even when the outcome is uncertain. That is what humans do, and that is what I do." Liara's chest tightened. There was honesty in his words, a weight of experience that did not boast or threaten. She had expected coldness. She had expected distance. Instead, she found a man grounded in principle, aware of danger but committed to responsibility. Hours passed as they spoke. Elias showed her the ship, explained how humans traveled between stars and shared stories of distant worlds where courage and compromise had saved lives. Liara listened, fascinated. For the first time, she began to imagine what it might be like to understand humans, to see their strengths and flaws, their fears and hopes. She realized something surprising. She was no longer afraid. The fear of marrying a merciless human still lingered like a shadow, but it was weakening. Curiosity, understanding, and even a small spark of admiration had begun to grow. Finally, the meeting ended, and the two returned to the observation balcony. Stars stretched endlessly before them, silent and magnificent. Liara felt a sense of calm she had not known since the journey began. "Thank you for showing me all of this," she said quietly. Elias nodded, his expression softening. "It is my duty. But also my choice to be honest. That is the only way trust can grow." Liara looked at him, realizing that perhaps trust could indeed grow, even between worlds. The human she had feared might not be merciless at all. He might simply be human. And in that realization, a tiny seed of hope began to take root in her heart. Perhaps this meeting was not the start of fear and dread, but the beginning of understanding. Perhaps the human captain, Elias Kane, was not a story of terror, but a story yet to be discovered, a story she might help write. As the stars shimmered above, Liara felt the first hint of something she had not expected: excitement. The future was uncertain, yes. But it was hers to face, and for the first time she did not feel alone. The hum of the Dauntless echoed through its corridors as Princess Liara followed Captain Elias Kane toward the transport bay. Today, she was not just a guest. She would see firsthand the challenges that defined the man she was meant to marry. Elias glanced at her, his expression calm but firm. "We are going to a nearby colony," he said. "It has been experiencing tension between factions. My presence is requested to ensure peace and stability. You may observe, but I expect complete attention to instructions." Liara nodded, her nerves fluttering. The stories of Elia's mercilessness had once filled her with fear. Now, curiosity and cautious admiration battled with lingering uncertainty. She had seen his calm confidence, his respect for his crew, but would she understand the weight of his responsibility when faced with danger? The transport shuttle lifted off smoothly, leaving the Dauntless behind. Liara pressed her hands to the window, watching the stars stretch like silver threads. Her mind wandered, imagining what awaited her on the colony. Would it be chaotic, peaceful, dangerous? Elias noticed her gaze. "Do not worry," he said softly. "Chaos is temporary, order is a process. We do not fear what we can prepare for." Liara tried to absorb his words. They were not just advice, they were a reflection of how he lived. Fear did not dictate action. Preparation and understanding did. The shuttle descended onto the colony, a sprawling settlement of domed buildings and bustling streets. Residents moved quickly, carrying supplies or tending to their work, but there was tension in the air. Elias stepped forward immediately, his presence commanding yet approachable. The crew followed his lead, forming a protective circle around the princess. A young colony leader approached, bowing respectfully. "Captain Kane," he said, "we are grateful for your assistance. There have been disputes between factions that threaten to escalate. We hope your guidance can prevent conflict." Elias nodded. "Thank you. I am here to observe, mediate, and ensure safety. We will proceed carefully but firmly. Violence is not the first solution, only the last resort." Liara watched him speak. His words were simple, yet they carried authority. He did not demand respect, he earned it. The way the colonists responded to him made her heart stir with a strange mixture of admiration and relief. Perhaps the human's power was not mercilessness, but the ability to protect and lead. They moved through the colony, Elias speaking with different leaders, listening, asking questions, and assessing situations. Liara noted how he balanced caution with decisiveness. He did not act without reason, and yet he did not hesitate when action was necessary. His mind seemed to calculate every outcome, yet he never lost sight of the people involved. Suddenly, a warning alarm echoed through the colony. Liara's heart leapt. A group of rogue drones, malfunctioning and aggressive, had begun moving toward the settlement. Panic rippled through the crowd. Elias acted immediately. "Evacuate civilians to the shelters. Crew, intercept the drones. Princess Liara, stay close to me." Liara obeyed, following his steady pace. She saw him coordinate the crew, issuing orders with precision. Every action was deliberate, every word purposeful. And yet, despite the urgency, there was calmness in his voice, a reassurance that everything was under control. She watched as the drones approached, their mechanical forms glinting under the colony lights. Elias did not hesitate. With calculated precision, he directed his crew to disable the drones without causing unnecessary harm. The humans moved like a single organism, anticipating each drone's action, protecting civilians and neutralizing threats efficiently. Liara's heart raced. She had expected fearsome brutality, chaos, or reckless action. Instead, she saw strategy, care, and leadership. Elias was strong, yes, but he was also compassionate. Every decision protected life first, victory second. A small child ran from the crowd, frightened by the drones whirring. Liara instinctively moved toward the child, but Elias was faster. He scooped the child into his arms, shielding them effortlessly while maintaining awareness of the situation around him. Liara's breath caught. This was the human she had feared. This man was merciless in battle, but merciful in heart. The drones were gradually neutralized. The last one fell, sparks flying, and silence returned to the colony. Civilians emerged from shelters, whispering thanks, admiration, and relief. Elias set the child down safely, giving a small nod before moving to assist the crew with the final checks. Liara's hands trembled slightly. She had never seen courage, intelligence, and care combined so seamlessly. Her fear of him had vanished, replaced by a mixture of awe and something else: curiosity, admiration, and a desire to understand him even more. Once the immediate danger passed, Elias gathered the colony leaders and the crew. "This incident shows the importance of preparation and cooperation," he said calmly. "Fear is natural, but panic is dangerous. We must act with thought, care, and courage. We have achieved safety today because we acted together, not because of fear or force alone." Liara watched the leaders nod, their respect evident. They trusted him. She realized that trust, not fear, was the foundation of his reputation. The human strength lay not in cruelty, but in their ability to protect and inspire. Later, as the sun set over the colony, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet, Elias turned to Liara. "You saw how we acted," he said. "Do you understand now why humans are feared? Not because we are cruel, but because we do what others cannot. We take responsibility. We act when others hesitate." Liara nodded, her mind racing with new understanding. I see now. You are different from the stories. Strong, yes, but merciless. No, not you." He looked at her, a small, approving smile on his lips. "Stories are easier to repeat than truth, Princess. Remember that. Always seek truth before judgment." They walked through the colony streets as the night settled. Liara noticed how Elias continued to engage with the residents, checking on the injured, offering reassurance, and ensuring that life could continue. Strength without care would have left destruction behind. His strength, tempered with humanity, had brought safety and calm. For Liara, the lesson was clear. Leadership was not about fear. Power was not about cruelty. Courage was about responsibility, about protecting life, about balancing strength with wisdom. And Elias Kane embodied all of these qualities. As they returned to the Dauntless, the shuttle moving smoothly through the night sky, Liara felt a change within herself. The fear that had haunted her for so long was fading. She had expected mercilessness, brutality, and coldness. Instead, she had seen courage, compassion, and intelligence. Elias glanced at her, noticing the quiet reflection on her face. "You have observed humans in their element," he said. "Do you still fear what you do not know?" Liara shook her head, a small smile forming. "No, I think I understand more now. Humans and you are not what I imagined." He nodded, as if expecting her response. "Understanding is the first step toward respect, and perhaps one day trust." Liara looked out the window at the stars passing by. Trust. It was a word she had not thought much about when it came to humans. And yet, watching Elias Kane, she realized that trust could grow even in the most unlikely circumstances. The journey back to Thalrin was quiet but filled with anticipation. Liara found herself thinking not about fear, but about curiosity. She wanted to learn more about him, about humans, about the possibilities that lay ahead. Perhaps the stories were not lies, but incomplete truths. Perhaps strength and mercy could exist together. As the shuttle approached the orbit of her home planet, Liara felt a small flutter of excitement. Her fear had not vanished completely. She was still nervous about what the future held, but it had been replaced by something stronger: hope. Hope that understanding could bridge worlds, and that she could face whatever lay ahead with courage. When the shuttle docked with the palace, Liara stepped out with a new sense of purpose. The balcony overlooking the city was no longer a place of dread. It was a place of reflection, a vantage point to see her world clearly, and to imagine the possibilities of new alliances, new friendships, and new understanding. Elias remained nearby, his presence steady and calm. Liara realized that the man she had feared might one day become the partner she could respect, admire, and perhaps even trust. The journey was far from over, but the first step had been taken. As night fell over Thalrin, Liara looked up at the stars and whispered softly to herself, "Perhaps the universe is not as frightening as I once believed. Perhaps it is full of courage, care, and hope." And in that quiet moment, for the first time she felt ready to face the next chapter of her life, no longer with fear, but with curiosity, admiration, and a flicker of excitement for what was to come. The Dauntless glided silently through space, the stars stretching endlessly. Around them, Princess Liara sat near the observation window, watching distant galaxies drift by. The last few days had been a whirlwind of discovery. She had seen Elias Kane's strength, his courage, and his remarkable leadership. Yet, despite the admiration she felt, there was still a part of her that hesitated. Could someone so formidable truly understand her? Could someone so disciplined also be compassionate in ways that mattered? Elias entered the room quietly, not noticing her at first. He moved with the same precision she had come to associate with him, yet there was a tension in his shoulders that was unusual. Liara observed him carefully. Something had changed. "Princess," he said finally, his voice quieter than usual. "May I speak with you?" Liara nodded, sensing that this was not a formal briefing or a discussion about protocols. There was a weight to his tone that invited honesty. They walked together to the balcony, the endless void of space before them. The hum of the ship was a gentle reminder that despite its size and power, it was still a vessel floating among stars. Elias leaned on the railing, staring at the distant planets. Liara stood beside him, unsure if she should speak or simply wait. Finally, he spoke. "Do you ever feel the weight of expectations?" he asked, almost to himself. Liara looked at him, surprised. I do," she admitted softly. "On Thalrin, a princess is expected to uphold tradition, protect the people, and carry the weight of the past. It is heavy." He nodded as if understanding completely. "Leadership is the same for humans, though in different ways. Every decision I make affects lives. Every action I take can save or endanger others. Sometimes, even when I succeed, I feel the cost." Liara's heart tightened. She had seen him act decisively, courageously, even mercilessly in battle. But she had never considered the personal weight he carried. The man who seemed so strong, so unwavering, also bore the quiet burden of responsibility, silently and alone. "Do you ever regret your actions?" she asked carefully. Elias looked at her then, his eyes softer than she had ever seen. "Regret, sometimes, but regret is not weakness. It is a reminder of responsibility. Every choice comes with consequences. A leader must accept them, or they fail those they protect. I cannot allow myself to fail." Liara realized something important in that moment. Mercilessness was not cruelty. It was a discipline of duty, a commitment to protect and endure even when it was difficult. She had feared him once, imagining a cold, unfeeling warrior. But now she saw the truth. The strength he displayed was paired with care, and the reputation he carried had hidden the humanity he rarely showed. For a while, they stood in silence, gazing at the stars. The hum of the ship felt like a heartbeat, steady and reassuring. Liara wanted to ask more, to understand him further, but she hesitated, unsure of how to breach the distance that still lingered between them. Finally, she spoke. You are not what the stories said." Elias let out a small, almost shy smile. "Stories are easy to exaggerate, Princess. They make heroes larger than life, villains darker than reality. But humans and humans' deeds are rarely so simple. Courage, kindness, fear, duty, they all exist together, and sometimes that combination is mistaken for something else." Liara nodded slowly. "I think I understand now. You are strong, but also careful, thoughtful, and kind in ways that matter." He looked at her, a faint glimmer of warmth in his eyes. "Kindness is not weakness. It is strength used wisely. Protecting life even when it is difficult is the measure of a person. Mercilessness is easier. Compassion requires courage." Her chest swelled with a new respect. This was not the man she had feared. He was more remarkable than she could have imagined. And yet, seeing him here, quiet and reflective, Liara felt something unexpected. A connection, a sense that beneath the reputation and duty, he was someone she could understand, someone she might even trust. The moment of calm was interrupted by an emergency alert. Liara felt a jolt of tension, but Elias remained composed. "Unidentified signals from a nearby system," he said, checking the readouts. "Possible distress call. We need to investigate." Liara followed him without hesitation. She had seen him act with courage before, but now she watched with a deeper understanding. He moved not out of pride or duty alone, but out of genuine concern for life. The hum of the ship and the blinking consoles felt almost alive as he coordinated the crew, preparing them for any scenario. As they approached the source of the signals, Liara realized that the distress came from a small colony stranded on a desolate planet. The settlement had been damaged by a recent storm, leaving the inhabitants vulnerable and frightened. Elias did not hesitate. "Prepare the shuttle for immediate deployment. Princess Liara, you will stay with me. Crew, secure equipment and supplies. We move quickly but safely." The shuttle landed on the planet's surface, dust swirling around them. Liara's heart pounded as she stepped out, but Elias remained calm, scanning the area, assessing risks, and giving clear, concise orders. They moved through the colony, distributing supplies and ensuring safety. Liara observed Elias as he spoke with the villagers, tending to their wounds, offering reassurance, and listening carefully. Strength and compassion blended seamlessly in his actions. At one point, a small child ran toward Elias, crying and frightened. Without hesitation, he knelt down, speaking softly to the child, offering comfort while remaining aware of the surroundings. Liara's chest tightened. She had seen power before, but this was the power of someone who could protect without dominating. Hours passed as they worked to stabilize the colony. Liara noticed that despite the physical demands, Elias did not falter. His focus remained unwavering, yet he treated every person with care. The villagers looked to him with trust and gratitude, a reflection of the reputation he had earned not through fear, but through consistent action and integrity. As the day ended and the sun set behind the jagged mountains, Liara and Elias stood together, observing the small colony now safe and secure. The air was still, carrying the faint scent of dust and fresh water. "You see," Elias said softly, "strength is not measured by how much power you have, but by how wisely you use it. Fear may protect temporarily, but respect and trust endure. That is the difference between cruelty and leadership." Liara's eyes shone with newfound understanding. She had feared this man once, imagining a merciless warrior. Now she realized that courage, duty, and compassion could coexist in ways that were inspiring. She had seen him in action, witnessed his care, and understood the burden he carried. "Captain Kane Elias," she said, using his first name carefully, I understand now. I see your courage, your care, and your heart. I think I could trust you." He looked at her, a quiet surprise in his eyes, then nodded with a faint smile. "Trust is earned, Princess. And I hope to continue earning yours in time." For the first time, Liara felt a sense of peace. She had feared marriage to a merciless human. Instead, she had met a man of remarkable strength and gentle care, someone whose actions spoke louder than stories. Her heart, once weighed by dread, now carried curiosity, admiration, and a flicker of something deeper. The shuttle returned to the Dauntless, the stars stretching endlessly around them. Liara watched Elias move through the corridors with the same calm authority she had seen during the day's challenges. And she realized that what she had once feared was not the man, but the unknown. The unknown was no longer frightening. It was full of possibilities. As they prepared to leave the planet behind, Liara felt a quiet determination. She would learn more about him, about humans, and perhaps, in time, about herself. The journey that had begun with fear and uncertainty was transforming into one of understanding, respect, and trust. And in that moment, amidst the stars and the quiet hum of the ship, Liara understood the truth of what she had witnessed. That courage, compassion, and integrity could exist in the same person, and that strength without care was meaningless. Elias Kane had shown her the balance of power and heart, and she felt a growing certainty that the stories of mercilessness had only told part of the truth. The future was still uncertain, the journey far from over. But for the first time, Liara felt ready. Ready to face challenges, ready to learn, and perhaps, ready to see the man behind the legend as more than a captain, more than a warrior, but as someone extraordinary, someone she might come to trust, respect, and even admire. As the Dauntless soared back toward Thalrin, Liara looked at Elias, and for the first time she saw not the merciless human from stories, but a man capable of extraordinary courage, wisdom, and heart. And she realized, perhaps she had begun to care. The Dauntless moved silently through the stars, carrying Princess Liara and Captain Elias Kane toward Thalrin. The journey back was calm, but the weight of what they had experienced lingered in Liara's mind. She had seen courage, leadership, and care in Elias, and each moment had slowly replaced her fear with admiration, curiosity, and even a growing affection she did not fully understand. The sight of her home planet rising beneath the shuttle brought a wave of mixed emotions. The golden cities sparkled under the twin suns, a familiar and comforting sight. Yet this return carried more than a sense of home. It carried responsibility. The people of Thalrin, the humans she had begun to understand, and her own future were all intertwined in ways she had only begun to comprehend. Elias stood beside her, his posture relaxed but attentive. "We are approaching orbit," he said quietly. "The palace is prepared for your arrival. Diplomats, crew, and citizens will witness your return. I suggest we present ourselves as partners, not strangers." Liara nodded, a sense of determination rising within her. She had feared him once, imagining a merciless soldier who would demand obedience and respect through intimidation. Now she understood that his strength lay not in fear, but in courage, responsibility, and care. "Yes," she said, "we will show them unity and trust." The shuttle docked gracefully, and the doors opened to reveal the grandeur of Thalrin's palace. The capital had prepared for the occasion. Banners waved, citizens lined the streets, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Liara felt a flutter of nervousness, but Elia's steady presence beside her grounded her. As they walked through the halls, officials and diplomats greeted them with polite respect. Some looked curious, others cautious, but all observed the human captain closely. Liara knew that these same people had once whispered about mercilessness, and she understood that their judgment would now meet reality. In the main hall, the queen awaited them. Queen Arithia's expression was calm but proud. "Welcome home, Liara," she said, her eyes shifting briefly to Elias. "And welcome, Captain Kane. We have heard of your deeds and observed your care. I see now the truth of your character." Elias bowed slightly. "Your Majesty, it is an honor to assist and serve." "I am grateful for your hospitality and trust." Liara felt a sense of pride swelling within her. This was the moment she had feared, but it had become the moment she understood. Fear had been replaced by clarity. Misunderstanding had given way to insight. And most importantly, she saw the human not as merciless, but as remarkable. The queen gestured toward a council of leaders and citizens gathered to witness their presence. "This union," she began, "represents more than an alliance. It represents understanding, courage, and hope. We welcome Captain Kane not just as a warrior, but as a partner to our princess and a friend to our people." Elias inclined his head. "I am honored. I do not seek accolades. My duty is to protect, serve, and learn. But I will do my best to honor this trust, not through fear, but through integrity and action." Liara stepped forward, her voice clear and confident. "And I, as Princess Liara, welcome this partnership. I have seen courage, wisdom, and care in Captain Kane. I know that strength can exist alongside compassion, and that leadership is not measured by fear, but by responsibility." A murmur of approval ran through the hall. Some skeptics nodded slowly, realizing that stories and rumors could never capture the full truth of a person. Liara felt warmth in her chest, knowing that she had been part of bridging that understanding. As the ceremony concluded, the queen spoke quietly to Liara. "You have learned much about humans, princess, but more importantly, you have learned much about yourself. Courage, respect, and trust can bridge worlds." Liara nodded, her gaze drifting to Elias. He stood quietly, observing the crowd, yet there was a softness in his expression reserved for her alone. She realized that trust and admiration were mutual. He had respected her curiosity, her intelligence, and her willingness to understand. In return, she had seen his heart, his responsibility, and his care. Later, as the hall emptied and the palace quieted, Liara and Elias stood on the balcony overlooking the city. The twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold. "You have changed my understanding," Liara said softly, her voice carrying a mixture of respect and wonder. "I feared you once, not knowing who you truly were. Now I see courage and care can exist together, and strength does not have to be harsh." Elias looked at her, his eyes reflecting the colors of the sunset. "And you have changed my understanding as well, Princess. I have seen openness, intelligence, and kindness in you. You observe, you learn, and you act with thought and integrity. That is rare. It inspires trust and courage in return." Liara smiled, feeling a warmth that went beyond respect. She realized that the bond between them was not just political, not just ceremonial. It was built on observation, understanding, and shared experience. The human she had feared had become someone she could admire, trust, and even care for. For the first time, she allowed herself a small, private thought. Perhaps this union, once dreaded, could become something extraordinary. Perhaps the future could be brighter than she had imagined, not only for herself but for both their worlds. Elias took a step closer. "The universe is full of uncertainty," he said softly. "But it is also full of hope, courage, and opportunity. Together we can face what comes next, not as strangers, not as ruler and soldier, but as partners." Liara's heart leapt. "Partners," she echoed. The word felt right, grounding, and promising. She had feared what she did not know, but now she understood that understanding, respect, and shared courage could replace fear entirely. The night deepened over Thalrin, the city lights sparkling like stars reflected on the ground. Liara and Elias remained on the balcony, talking quietly, sharing observations of their worlds, and imagining what could be accomplished together. It was a moment of peace, but also of promise. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between Liara and Elias strengthened further. They worked together on diplomatic missions, assisted in trade agreements, and even trained with the Thalrin Defense Forces, combining human strategy with alien technology. Each day, Liara saw more of the man behind the legend, not merciless, but wise, disciplined, and profoundly caring. The citizens of Thalrin noticed as well. Stories of a human captain who acted with courage, fairness, and compassion began to spread. Fear of the unknown gave way to admiration. Children whispered about the captain who had saved lives and treated them kindly. Leaders sought guidance from both him and Princess Liara, recognizing the value of unity and understanding. One evening, as Liara prepared for a ceremonial dinner with Elias and her mother, she reflected on the journey. From fear to curiosity, from observation to understanding, she had seen the truth of human courage and care. And more importantly, she had seen that strength and compassion could exist together in a way that inspired everyone around them. Elias entered quietly, his presence steady and reassuring. "Princess," he said, smiling gently, "are you ready?" Liara turned to him, her own smile bright and confident. "Yes," she said, "ready to face the future together." He offered his arm, and she took it. In that simple gesture there was trust, understanding, and the unspoken promise of partnership. Together they walked toward the hall, toward the people, and toward a future that neither fear nor rumor could define. As they entered the grand hall, Liara felt a surge of hope. This was more than a political alliance. It was a story of courage, of compassion, of understanding between two worlds. Humans and Thalrin could coexist, learn from each other, and grow stronger together. Elias spoke softly, his voice carrying through the hall. "We stand here not as separate worlds, but as partners. Courage, care, and respect will guide us. Fear is no longer needed, for trust and understanding will light the way." Applause echoed through the hall. Liara glanced at Elias, her heart full. She had feared the unknown, but she had discovered truth. She had feared a merciless human, but she had found a man of courage, heart, and integrity. And in that discovery, a bridge between worlds had been built, stronger than any rumor, brighter than any story. Later that night, as the palace slept under the twin moons, Liara and Elias stood once more on the balcony. The stars above seemed to shine more brightly than ever. Liara looked at him, her voice quiet but certain. "Captain Kane Elias," she said, smiling, "thank you. Not for what you did, but for who you are." He looked at her, a soft, genuine smile crossing his face. "Princess Liara, thank you for seeing me, for understanding, for trusting. Together we can do much more than either of us could alone." And as they stood side by side, gazing at the stars, Liara realized that the future was no longer frightening. It was full of hope, courage, and the promise of a partnership that could change the galaxy. The stories of fear and mercilessness had ended. The story of trust, understanding, and human courage had just begun.